On September 23, 2019, at around 4:30 p.m., Lisa Snyder called 911 from her home. The dispatcher tells the fire captain, quote, "She mentioned that the 8-year-old has been bullied and has made threats of doing this, but didn't want to go alone," end quote. The 8-year-old was Connor Snyder, a 3rd grader at Greenwich Elementary School, where he was developing an interest in science, especially rocks and minerals. He would often bring rocks in to show his teacher. And Connor loved his 4-year-old sister Brinley, who was in her 2nd year of pre-K. So now their mother, Lisa, is calling 911. And she's building a narrative before she even speaks to a police officer. A narrative that would be really hard for anyone to believe. That her 8-year-old son had himself and his sister in the basement of their home. Later, when Lisa would speak to police, she would tell them what happened that afternoon. So she says, Connor got home from school, he came inside and he said he wanted to play on his iPad, but then he changed his mind and he decided to play with his laptop, but then he couldn't find the power cord on his laptop, so he asked his little sister Brinley if she wanted to go downstairs in the basement with him and build a fort. Lisa stated to police that, quote, "He loves building forts. That's his thing. They play downstairs in the basement all the time," end quote. Connor asked his mother if he could bring 2 wooden bar-height chairs down with him for the fort, I guess, and Lisa said he could, as long as he was able to get them downstairs and back upstairs on his own. And she actually goes into great detail about Connor bringing the stools downstairs. She said that he took the chairs down one at a time, one step at a time, and she kept hearing the thump, and she said it was a hard going, but she knew he could do it. And then he grabbed a single wired cable dog lead with a vinyl coating and swivel eye snap hooks on both ends. He grabbed this off the kitchen table. Now let's talk about this for a moment. The family did have a dog, 5-month-old Boomer, who was a black husky pit bull mix, but Boomer only weighed 50 pounds, and this dog lead was meant for much bigger dogs. It had a weight limit of 250 pounds. So Lisa Snyder had ordered this dog lead from the Hamburg Walmart the night before, and she'd picked it up that same morning at 9:30 a.m. And she wants us to believe that her 8-year-old son specifically took this thing off the kitchen table so that he could bring his 4-year-old sister downstairs and take both of their lives. While Connor was going up and down from the basement, Lisa was folding laundry, and then she went outside with Boomer, the dog, and she told police that she was only out of the house for roughly 10 minutes before she went back inside, and then she went down the basement stairs to ask her children if they wanted Chef Boyardee or frozen pizza for dinner, and that is when she found them. According to the affidavit of probable cause, Connor and Brinley were found 3 feet apart. They were from that wire dog lead, and this wire dog lead had been wrapped around the main support beam. One end was around Connor's neck, the other around Brinley's neck. The 2 bar-height wooden stools were nearby, tipped over. Connor and Brinley were still alive. What would you do if you found your children like this? You would do anything to get them down and try to save them, right? Yeah, normally, right? A normal person would do that. Well, Lisa told police that she tried to get Brinley down. Brinley weighed 40 pounds, but Lisa said she couldn't get the clasp on the wire lead undone because when she has spikes in stress and anxiety, she sweats profusely. So her hands were just so sweaty, she couldn't undo it and save her daughter's life. She couldn't wiped her hands off or put a pair of gloves on. No. So Lisa left Brinley hanging, and then she tried to get Connor down, but Connor weighed 150 pounds. So she was unable to because she says he was too heavy. So she left the basement and she called 911, and then, according to her own statement, she never returned to the basement where her children. She didn't pick up the stools and place them underneath Connor and Brinley. She didn't run screaming to a neighbor's house to ask for help. She didn't get a knife and attempt to cut the wire lead. She didn't get wire cutters that she probably had in her garage because she supposedly refinishes furniture and does all this stuff. At 4:41 p.m., the Kempton Fire Department EMTs arrived at the residence. Now, Eric Bubbenmoyer was one of them. He and the other EMT were told that Lisa Snyder would be waiting outside the house for them, but as they approached the house, no one was waiting outside. So they knocked on the door and Lisa Snyder answered. She was talking on her cell phone, and Eric would later testify that she seemed nervous and anxious, but she wasn't crying. But when he looked to his left, he saw Brinley and Connor from the rafters, and their bodies were still warm, so the EMTs immediately started working on freeing them from their nooses. All of this happened while Lisa Snyder was still upstairs on the phone. Eric Bubbenmoyer was able to release the clasp that held Brinley, but his partner was having a bit more trouble with Connor, who was admittedly heavy for his age. So Eric helped, and soon both children were down, and they were able to perform CPR on them. The children were unconscious, but still alive, and they were immediately airlifted to Lehigh Valley Hospital, where they were put on life support. She indicated that Connor had been bullied on multiple occasions since the first grade, that he had told her he wanted to die. He lost 25 pounds since school started because he was starving himself. End quote. That leads me to wonder if Connor was starved, but not by himself. If Lisa Snyder knew what she was going to do, where this was all going, and there is evidence to show that this was premeditated, did she start withholding food from her son to support the alibi she knew she would later have to give law enforcement? Connor wanted because of the bullies, but he's a kid, right? So he doesn't want to face the unknown by himself. So he's going to bring his little buddy, his little sister Brinley, with him so they can go together. Lisa laid it all out for the police, wrapped up neatly with a bow on top. No need for an investigation, right? Certainly not, because from the first moment, the police felt that Lisa's story was very off. The day that Connor... The footage showed him on the bus laughing. He wasn't getting bullied. He wasn't showing any signs of getting bullied. And then he got off the bus, smiling, showing no signs of distress, and he ran home, probably looking forward to getting a snack, playing with his sister, seeing his mother. All the teachers at Connor's school were like, bullying? What bullying? They'd never seen it happen. Additionally, Lisa, Connor, and Brinley were not the only people living in that house. Lisa had a 17-year-old son, Owen, who resided there, and although he wasn't home at the time of the incident, he was interviewed by police later, and he also claimed that Connor wasn't being bullied, and he knew this because he'd asked Connor directly. Apparently, Lisa had made mention to Owen that Connor was having some problems with the other kids at school, so like a big brother would do, Owen approached Connor and talked to him about it, and Connor expressed confusion, and he said he was not being bullied. Owen also said that his little brother and his little sister, they never played in the basement because they were scared of playing in the basement, and he could only remember one single time where they'd played in the basement. Owen did not dispute that Connor and Brinley liked to build forts, but he said they always built the forts in the living room, using sofa cushions and chairs. They've never built a fort in the basement. Additionally, a friend of Lisa's told police that she'd gotten a text from Lisa on September 16th, and Lisa told this friend that her son Connor was due to being bullied at school. But this same friend picked Connor up from school that same day, and she saw him sitting with his friends and laughing when she pulled up. He was in a good mood when he got in her car, and he never said a word to her about being bullied or having thoughts of harming himself. And 3 weeks before that, Lisa had visited her friend and talked about how she was depressed, didn't want to get out of bed, and that she no longer cared about her 2 kids. So Lisa first tells her friend that she's depressed, doesn't care about her kids, and then 2 weeks later she's telling the same friend that Connor wanted to take his own life because of bullies. Now at the hospital, Connor and Brinley were unresponsive. They had been in full cardiac arrest, and they had been resuscitated in the helicopter, but when they got to the hospital, they had to be put on life support. And Lisa was there with them, but she was not allowed to be with them in their room unsupervised. There had to be a security guard present at all times, and in my personal opinion, this was because the police couldn't be sure that Lisa wouldn't do something to her children while she was alone with them. While her children were on life support, with tubes shoved down their throats and needles in their arms, Lisa did a lot of Facebooking. So Lisa posted the family's above-ground pool for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and the caption read, quote, "I'm selling this new pool to help pay for my children's final expenses, as they were in a horrible accident. Serious inquiries only, please. I have a lot to deal with right now because of the loss of my children. Please don't waste my time," end quote. Well, first of all, she hadn't lost her children yet. They may have been unresponsive, they may have been unconscious, they may have even been brain dead. We don't really know what they're aware of. Lisa was also messaging people on Facebook, and one of these individuals actually made these messages public because she felt that Lisa's behavior was beyond strange considering the circumstances. So this woman's name is Megan Sant, and she'd known Lisa for a while. Lisa sent her a Facebook message saying, "Update, it's not looking good right now. Their brains are swollen, but once the swelling goes down, they're going to do a brain scan to check for brain activity. They said hopefully tomorrow or Thursday they can do that. The doctor herself told us to prepare for the worst. And for a doctor to say that, you know it's pretty bad. And at that point, I'm going to have to make the toughest decision of my entire life, end quote. If Lisa was told to expect the worst thing for her personally would be for those two kids to wake up. Why would she want them to wake up? If they did, they would tell everyone what had really happened. Megan responds and says that, she's so sorry, she can't imagine what Lisa's going through, and Lisa writes back, quote, "Can't cry anymore. I'm completely numb. My life has been ripped to shreds and it's never gonna get better. But I gotta try to stay strong for blank, and miracles happen every day, you never know. But I'm also not stupid, and I'm not gonna get my hopes up." Lisa later sends another message that said, quote, "Update. They're not going to make it. The doctors will be pulling the plug tomorrow or Friday. They need to run a few more tests simply for the investigation. After that, my babies will be going to heaven to live with Jesus, even when she was pulling the plug. Your kids are in the hospital on life support, and you're messaging me about it?" End quote. The fact that Lisa Snyder was even allowed to make the decision to take her own children, her two children, off of life support while she was a suspect in what had happened to them. Connor and Brinley were removed from life support on Thursday, September 26th. Brinley was pronounced 4:26 p.m. and Connor followed her just 14 minutes later at 4:40 p.m. The autopsies were done and the coroner ruled that there had been. This is the way Lisa decided to kill her children, in the most painful and scary way possible. Another search warrant was executed on October 2nd after the police talked to Lisa's 17-year-old son, Owen, and he told them that Lisa had more cell phones than the police had taken. So they went and they got a couple other cell phones, but what they didn't find was a Samsung Galaxy Note 9 that Lisa used, and she told them that she'd lost it the same day she found her kids hanging in her basement. She said she had picked up Brinley from school and put her phone on top of the car and then drove away, forgetting that the phone was on top of the car. Let's talk about her Google searches, which in my opinion proves that this was a premeditated act. On September 17th, 6 days prior, Lisa searched carbon monoxide in a car. How long? On September 23rd, Lisa Googled, "Do a hybrid car produce carbon monoxide?" And then she Googled, "Does a hybrid car produce carbon monoxide while idling?" And it appeared that she was messaging a man who has not yet been identified. She messaged this man saying, "Things are bad, bullying issues, and tells me he's 8, lost 25 pounds in the first 3 weeks of school. Breaks my heart. I just want to cry." There is a great deal of evidence that proves Connor could not have done this by himself. Connor had been getting occupational therapy in school because of his below average visual motor skills. The therapist said that Connor had low hand-eye coordination and difficulty with dexterity. The therapist said that she didn't believe Connor could have. He couldn't even tie his own shoes. She also said that she didn't think Connor could have even stood on the chair by himself because he had difficulty with motor planning skills and he had poor balance due to his weight and strength. Now, seeing the photos of the crime scene, Connor's therapist also gave the opinion that the dog lead, it was too even on both ends for Connor to have done it because he would have had a hard time distinguishing where the middle was. Lisa Snyder was finally arrested on December 2nd, and she was charged with 2 counts of first degree, 2 counts of third degree, 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, 1 count tampering with evidence. Hearing happened on February 25th, 2021, and a lot of stuff went down. If Lisa was concerned about her children dealing with physical pain, she would not have removed them from the world in the way she did. She would have found a better method, one that didn't involve any pain or fear. She did it the way she did so that she wouldn't get caught, so that she could point the finger at her poor son and say that he did it. Connor and Brinley's feelings and happiness were the very last thing on Lisa Snyder's mind. In fact, I would go so far as to say that she didn't consider them at all. She tried to blame Connor for it. Now she's insulting their memory even further by trying to convince everyone that she did this only because she loves them so much. In this case, I have no problem with Lisa Snyder being found guilty and getting sent to death row. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, because it's the best possible outcome. She will have years to sit behind bars and relive what she did. And then her life will be taken from her, just like she took Connor's life and Brinley's life, and if heaven or exists, we know where she's going. How she was able to get them to go along with her plan is beyond me. I don't know, but I'm sure it wasn't too hard because they were children and she was their mother and they trusted her. I hope exists just so people like Lisa can go there and never have another moment of peace or happiness. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful.